Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Checked Before. This time, Future Imperfect. Yeah, not a comment on this podcast. Future Imperfect. Another way to comment on this podcast, go follow us on Facebook. It's All Been Checked Before. That's what we are there. Search for us there on Facebook. Follow us there. Follow along with us. Keep up with whatever we're up to. And your future will be perfect. But this is Future Imperfect on It's All Been Checked Before.
Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Checked Before. Your regular hosts are here.
This is Steven.
And Keith.
Jimmy-Jerome. We are here to talk about the seminal episode that changed everything from here on out. Future Imperfect. When Next Gen did a 16-year time jump and stayed with it for the rest of the season. First impressions.
It's hard to summarize what I thought was. I think the problem with going through this episode was that it's distracting trying to consider what you already know is going to happen in the future, what we already think we know. Mm-hmm. And generally, whenever any series does an episode where they go, here's the future, I really don't like it because they're just setting up retcons for themselves later on. Like, it's just you're setting up conflicts, or it's when someone tries to when people try to like end the series with a future episode. Mm-hmm. Sort of like discarding it, saying, okay, we're done, we're never coming back here, this is it, this is the way everything's going to end 20 years from now. It's like you're locking yourself into something.
Are you talking about Dawson's Creek?
I'm just saying in general, like any sort of like
because there's a future timeline in the series finale of Next Gen. It's like 25 years in the future.
Oh my god. Yeah, I can think of a few. Like Veep did that off the top of my head.
Oh. I mean, Parks and Rec still came back for
I still haven't seen the reunion yet. And is it on Peacock?
Probably.
I'm sure it is.
It's fun. I wouldn't say it's great. Yeah. It's fun.
Yeah.
This episode starts with Riker playing the trombone badly, which surprised me because I thought he was a really good trombone player. But apparently, there's one note he just can't hit.
Nobody can hit that note.
I wrote down right away, is he playing Misty? And then sure enough, later when they're playing it again, I'm like, that is Misty. That is what the Johnny Mathis is. If you guys remember that one. I'm as helpless as a kitten. And I can't sing anymore, otherwise we will owe them.
Yeah,
it's too late. It's too late already.
It's Riker's birthday party, which I thought was kind of fun. I do think they probably should have been in off-duty outfits. Like, it seemed like, oh, this is a work party. We just got off shift, so we came straight from the bridge.
How often it's, I guess we sometimes see people in their street clothes or whatever, but it's hard to imagine how often people change out of their uniforms if they're living on the ship like that for events or functions, or are they just going on a date? They seem to do that for holodeck stuff. But I mean, if you're just getting off of a shift, would you bother to go back? It seems.
And I think they did just get off because Picard and Data were just getting off and going to join them, and they were running late. So I feel like, probably wasn't their day off. But still, it would have been nice if they. I think it was more of a budgetary thing. They didn't want to just create a bunch of new costumes.
Yeah, from a fashion sense, I feel like we see more different clothes when they're on a holodeck than we do when they're just hanging out. What is the cake? Is it a picture of the night sky?
I don't know.
Is it just some weird trying to make it look like it's either way? It looked delicious. It's cake.
Yeah,
they're not going to screw up cake.
I mean, replicated cake just isn't quite the same, but it's pretty good.
That's fair.
Guinan home baked this one because her Riker.
I was going to say they made the frosting that was made outside the replicator. That's what made it special.
That's a pretty big sized cake for. We don't really get to see huge replicators. I guess they must replicate industrial equipment and things like that, right? So
they do.
Do we ever get to see like a huge replicator?
Sure, but I would think they've probably got a kitchen that has a industrial replicator. We know in the cargo bay they have, in engineering they have big replicators, but I'm not sure.
Charlie X. How could they fit all those turkeys in Charlie X if they didn't have a giant replicator?
Well, I think in the original series, it doesn't seem like the replicator makes real food. It makes colored cubes.
Yeah.
The real food had to be cooked in an oven.
This tastes like snozzberries. Yeah. Before the cake, I think it's Data and Picard are on the bridge, and one of the crew person's like, hey, the fluctuation looks really weird. Mm-hmm. So they walk over to him, and then he disappears. I'm like, why can't he just stay there and be like, hey, this is what I saw? Instead, he's like, hey, this looks weird. I'm out of here. I'm clocking out. and he just disappears. I'm like, what is that?
I mean, I think it was to make way for the senior officers, but you're right. He should stay and explain or something before Data takes over. And I mean, maybe at this point, though, they know Data's going to read it faster than they can explain it. So just get out of the way.
Oh, Data's coming over. All right. Why bother?
It seemed a little premature for Picard to call Riker to the bridge. Like, did you figure out really what's going on before you ruin his birthday party?
Yeah.
That's funny.
But you can tell Riker's mad because he doesn't even acknowledge the order. Picard's like, get to the bridge, and he just leaves. He doesn't say, okay, I'm coming or anything.
I didn't find that a sign of irritation, but that's a good point.
I don't think it was either. I think it was just an oversight.
That was just kind of fun. I thought it was just like another, Frakes being cool thing, which I liked it. Just that I how did I note it? The Riker recruitment point. Another one of those scenes where it's just sort of like everyone was hearing what was going on apparently because it said assemble a crew and come to the bridge. Riker just one of these things. Still had like a mouthful of cake. Just
points to Geordi and Worf and they're out the door.
Loved it.
Well, because at that point, I guess he knew he was going on an away mission, and those are his people to take on an away mission. But I did like that Picard gave him a happy birthday before he beamed down when he was.
No, he was twitching the knife. It's like I can't be there, so ha ha ha.
So they beam down and they scan the gases. And they're like, "Yeah, these are okay. They're not great, but we can stay for a little bit." I'm like, "Did you scan the gases before you beam down to know what you're beaming into?"
Right.
Wear little breather things if the gases are standard.
It's not an exact science beaming. It's just kind of it's more of an art. Just
did they say before they went down it's an M-type planet? Was that this?
I don't recall.
But I as you know, I love the matte drawings. I like this one at the very top.
Did you notice the transporter transporter officer Hubble was back instead of O'Brien?
Mm-hmm. I thought that's why I initially blamed her for why they couldn't get Riker.
I wrote down O'Brien wouldn't have these issues. Is he still at the party?
That's what I had the same thought.
I forgot to note at the beginning that Riker turned 6. That's what it seemed like. How many candles were there, or whatever those things were.
So then Riker wakes up. He's Captain Riker. He has a new badge. I don't know why I said bridge. He has a new badge. The sick bay has some extra screens and stuff, but overall, other than like the badge and some hair, like the things really haven't changed much in design. Yeah. And that to me is what I spent the large part of this beginning of the episode going, we see in every iteration of Star Trek that actually runs that everything changes every few years. Mm-hmm. But as soon as Star Trek's off the air, apparently they go into stasis on the uniforms for decades at a time. Yeah.
I thought that, well, my first reaction was similar to Keith's reaction to the entire episode, which was another alternate universe. Oh boy. I got over that. I actually ended up liking this whole part of the episode more than the rest of it. And actually liking it. And maybe it's because of and in spite of the fact that it's like, I know there's a catch here, but what is it? And I kind of like the catch to a point. But the one thing, and to your point, Jimmy, I think I agree with you. It's like, oh, you could see the slight differences and fashion note. The different uniforms weren't that different to be that exciting, but just enough to be like, oh, those look a little different. So I guess the kid read his mind, or the alien read his mind. Spoiler, it's an alien, not a kid. Read his mind well enough to duplicate it pretty good. But you know what didn't change? Crusher hadn't aged a day. She just put her hair up. I mean,
her hair looked great
and all that, but she had not aged a day, and I believe that to be true, that she would not age a day. But.
Yeah, her hair looked great. She looked great, of course. That was a big thing I noticed about this episode. Bev's hair was the first fashion that I wrote down. The badge is the thing that most changed. If you notice, instead of pips on the collar, the rank were the bars behind the insignia badge. So Riker had 4 bars, and then so like the ensigns had 1 bar, but all of the other senior staff, so Geordi, Crusher, Troy, everybody except Picard had 3 solid bars and then 1 grayed out bar, which I guess would be like 3 solid pips and then 1 hollow pip, but it's not a rank we see in Next Gen. So I guess there's a new rank between commander and captain in the future, and all the officers have been promoted to it. Picard's still just had 4 bars like a captain, but he had a special star inside his emblem to indicate he was an admiral.
So there's something I forgot to mention when we were talking about the transporter thing, and that like the effect of her attempting to get them and failing. So it's like they're trying to start like a chainsaw or a lawnmower, like the just like it's not. That's yeah. I don't know. That's a good way to represent it. The other thing I should point out before we move forward is that just to get this out of the way, I couldn't stop making Wrath of Khan references in my head like the entire time. Captain Riker, just everybody's like Commander LaForge, Admiral Picard, just the whole time. So just getting that out of the way now.
I was definitely with Admiral Picard. Admiral. I will say,
eyes.
I liked his face. Another quick fashion. I like Picard's facial hair. I'm usually not a goatee guy. No offense, guys. For myself, I should say for myself. For myself, I'm not a goatee guy, but he looks great with it.
To me, he looked like he was the Mirror Universe Picard.
Yeah. I liked everyone in this quote unquote alternate universe much more than the 2 weeks ago.
Yesterday's Enterprise.
No, sorry, Crusher, the Warp Bubble episode.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
So Riker it's been 16 years, apparently. He's been in a coma for 10 days, but before that, he was captain for 9 years. I guess part of my problem is I was obsessed with how well built out the future was, and not having any recollection of this episode. I didn't know what the twist was. So to me, I'm just like, but this doesn't make sense as a legitimate future version because of this and this and this and this.
Yeah.
But I guess because it wasn't legit future version, it's all fine. Right. I just spent half the episode obsessing over the.
So I was kind of the same way, Jimmy, in that for me, except in my mind, I'm like, I know this isn't real. I know it's real. So I just kind of was like, this is an alternate timeline, whatever. And then I'm not happy necessarily with the entire resolution of it, but I do like it from the sense of, okay, this is something. This is, I talk about the Kryptonite episodes of Smallville and Naked Now, Naked Time. This is a way to be like, okay, so this is what Riker thinks his future will be, or something like that. That's how he thinks of the future.
That he'll take over the Enterprise. But you notice Troy wasn't with him, and that disappointed me heavily.
Yeah.
I kept expecting when they reveal the son, her to reveal that she's the mother.
I thought that too, and that's another reason I really like that scene, in that I thought it was him. I thought it was him accepting we're never going to get together, and at some point I'll move on or whatever, or she'll have moved on or whatever, and that'll happen. And then the fact that and she asked the question, "Who's his mother?" And I kept thinking like, and first they're like, "Oh, I can't find a picture of her," and then they finally got around to it, and I actually did recognize Minuet right away. Like, it's Minuet. And then I was like, oh no, don't tell me this is a holodeck. No. But fortunately it wasn't.
It took me a second. I wrote it down because I was very proud of myself for recognizing it. It's like, Minuet? Oh my God. Yeah, it's just.
Yeah, you guys are quicker than I. I had to wait for Riker to explain it to me.
Yeah.
I'm like, she looks familiar. Who is she? And then Riker eventually said, "Oh, that was Minuet. She's not real." And I was like, "Oh yeah, it was Minuet."
Well, the tip off for me is that she always reminds me of Kate Mulgrew, and I thought of that. I was like, "Oh wait, oh right, that's who that was." And then Minuet.
And again, I think that points to the idea that he's mining Riker's mind for what he thinks of his future, and I guess his ideal wife, if he's resigned to, I don't think I'm ever going to Troy and I are together, would be a Minuet type person, but I guess.
I found it really interesting that he still has these feelings for Minuet, this person that isn't real. I understand it.
Yeah.
But it still feels like it's a major character reveal for Riker and where he is mentally right here. I mean, even when it falls apart, though, I was glad that I'm skipping over a bunch of my notes, but I was glad when it falls apart, there was a second false reality. I liked it wasn't as simple as, we're in a Romney on the holodeck and it's Tomalak. Good use of bringing back Andreas Katsoulas as Commander Tomalak.
So can either of you guess what that reminded me of? The way this episode was flowing. M. Night Shyamalan's?
M. Night Shyamalan?
No, Shyamalan, the Rick and Morty episode, first season. Where they kept doing the fake out reveals of, this is a simulation. No, is this a simulation? This is it's just, I love that fallback strategy, and just was fun. It said something about the alien too. It's just I like the way that worked out.
Yeah, Commander Tomalak, he's in 4 episodes, and this was the 3rd one. We won't see him again until the series finale.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it'll be a while.
Which I guess isn't that far away, but...
We're almost halfway through the series.
Yeah. Wow.
So we skipped past a couple of things that
We skipped past a lot.
that I thought were funny at the time. Before we knew what was going on, or before we were told what was happening. So he's in the sick bay.
Mm-hmm.
Beverly tries to take him to his room, or send him to his room. And my note was, Riker knows that the audience wants to skip his quarters and get right to the bridge.
Yeah.
Because that's what's more interesting.
Sure.
But I immediately laughed at myself a little bit later with the next scene, because there is some writer manipulation happening in the sense of we're doing this for most effective shock value for the surprises and for the audience watching this.
Oh,
because he avoided going to his quarters, because once he got back there, seemingly to find things that are normal, and they did that quick that kind of jump cut reveal. Here we go. Wait a minute, some kid is playing a trombone in my room. So it was just that. Here's another shock. They were saving it.
It just occurs to me that's why Troy wanted him to go to his quarters in the first place.
Right. She did mention that later in the conversation.
Yeah.
But from just the fourth wall writing perspective too, it was a build upon the surprise that you're supposed to have. Let's go here first, because we'll see things. We'll see some familiar characters doing things. Oh yeah, there's a promotion. Oh, there's a Ferengi. This is a neat little possible future thing. Then we go to the room, and it's like, what? Yeah.
Why did the alien think the boy was? Is the alien actually a boy? Or
yeah, I think so.
Okay, so that's why he chose that.
Yeah, we don't know how old, or did they say how long he had been there?
A while, but he still seemed like a kid.
Okay.
He was played by Chris Demetrol, who was best known for Dolly Dearest, Sometimes They Come Back, and the television show Dream On.
Yeah, I recognize him from Dream On.
Oh.
And The Secret Adventures of Jules Verne back in 2000.
Yeah. He was on a lot of stuff back in the day.
Yeah.
I did not. I really liked him. I assume you mean he was playing like the child actor, the human part. Yeah. So
I did too. I always thought he did good stuff, generally speaking. I thought I thought he did a good job in hindsight, especially playing the fact that something was up, but not completely tipping his hand, kind of a thing. Like we know something else is going on, but he
had me fooled, because when we got the Romulan reveal, I was convinced that this whole thing was a plot for Tomalak to get him to reveal the secret base.
Yeah,
that was a really well thought out.
I did too.
That made sense. The Romulans did that.
Hey, why do you think Worf was kind of weird, and he was in Data's position on the bridge, and he was just kind of quiet and weird?
So Data's second officer. Third in command behind Riker and Picard, and he's the operations officer. So I assume Worf is now in that position as third in command operations. Okay. And then Data took Riker's old job.
But what about, because every time
Worf had a big scar on his face.
Yeah, I thought every time Riker tried to talk to him, he was just kind of like, heh, and didn't say anything beyond that. So maybe
that's because of the scar.
Is that what it is? Okay. Yeah. I thought maybe the kid was like, I don't know what, I don't know.
No, I think that's it. I think, Stephen, what you're saying, it's just, there was a lot of, in retrospect, and I love the way we were playing this, the bluffing angle of what was happening. It was always like, oh God, there's computer lag. Hold on a minute.
Oh, right.
No, okay. No, let me I've got it. You wanted this, right? And just having to have some intermediary agent to help him through whatever's happening. I love playing that angle, and that was what was starting to tip a few things off for me, at least. Other than construct itself, but I knew that there had to be something like that because of the computer lag, and the more importantly, the way that people were playing around it. And again, it was subtle enough not to be like just a slap in the face of, oh God, here it is, but you just knew, oh, something must be up, and just the way that it's. Like it would have taken too much processing power, or he has to draw from what the ship's computer knows as opposed to what Riker thinks about on the surface level, things like that. I mean, maybe he would have picked Deanna if he had known to do some other things that, to put the picture together differently.
Mm-hmm.
The computer not working was a good hit, but I had no idea why. Like, I didn't get the lag of thinking. The thing that I thought was odd about the computer is when they ask for the family record, it's just Riker playing with Jean-Luc, essentially like at the age he is now. There wasn't a variety of ages.
Yeah.
Loved it. I'm gonna say that's the processing power thing. I guess that's what popped in my head immediately. And part of that too is the Rick and Morty episode I was referring to. The idea when you have a supercomputer or an AI or something having to run things, the more complex you try to make it, you got to throw in some shortcuts. Otherwise, you have to go, okay, wait a minute, get me put up like a loading screen for a second.
But he had some good details, like the Ryza statue in Riker's quarters.
Yeah.
I like that there was a Klingon and a female officer and a Ferengi at the con. We won't see a Ferengi officer in a Starfleet uniform again until late Deep Space Nine. In sickbay, we saw Nurse Alyssa Agawa. I'm not sure if she was named in this episode, but she is played by Patty Yasutake.
Yeah.
But she's in 16 episodes of Next Gen and a couple of the films. So
I
this
feel
is
like
a
we've
major
seen her before, but this is the first time they let her talk. But yeah, she's in stuff later too. Yeah.
Yeah, this was her first IMDb credit. But yeah, she's in.
Oh, okay.
She's in a ton of it, and in the Titan books I'm reading right now, which Captain Riker after the movies, she's in the sickbay on the Titan. So she's still around in the books as well because she's a notable character. I mean, after Dr. Salar. She's the most she's more recognizable than Dr. Salar. She's the most recognizable face in sickbay aside from Crusher. She's got lots of other credits too, but she's best known for her Star Trek role. She was in Stop Her, My Mom Will Shoot, and Drop Dead Gorgeous. The episode was directed by Les Landau, one of our favorites, and it was written by J. Larry Carroll and David Karen. David Karen wrote for Tech War, Shatner series. He also was a story editor on Next Gen. This is the only written by credit I see him. And the other writer, he was also a story editor, and this was his only writing credit. Of course, Riker's a good dad. That doesn't surprise me. It'll be a long time before we see him with a kid again, but we will see him with a kid again. Immediately when this happened, I was Googling Riker's actual son's name to see if he was named Jean-Luc because I couldn't remember, but he was not. He names his actual son Thaddeus.
I'm going back a couple seconds, but then when they show him playing with the kid and he's tickling him or whatever he's doing, roughhousing, it's a very extended, ha, 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 this is so much fun. And I imagine that's what the alien was like. This is what humans do when they're happy. And he was like, I can't think of anything else, so I'm just going to let this image keep going for 3 minutes. I know it wasn't 3 minutes, I'm exaggerating, but it was very long.
I think it was a good credit to Riker's character, though, that he was so loving towards the son he didn't remember. Because from his perspective, obviously, he's trying to figure this out, and it's a mess. But he's, maybe I'm reading into it, but I think he's thinking, wow, how much worse would it be for this kid? Because Troy pointed that out.
Yeah.
They're going through it, and Riker does everything he can to act like a good father who's known this kid forever.
Well, the alien's pointing it out through
Through Troy.
Yeah, there was just, I love that kind of thing. Just they're all always kind of nudging him, kind of, let's do this.
As we learned last week, I got to tell one of these guys on the Enterprise that you've had sex with is, oh, that kid's yours. And they're like, oh, it is? oh, okay. You know what? There's no need for a test or anything. I bet it is mine. Yeah, I have super stuff.
I mean, I guess you have
didn't want us to lose our non-explicit rating, but.
Yeah, you have to wonder how much of an issue that sort of deceit would be in the future either. So, I mean.
Yeah.
So he created the Enterprise with smell and sound and everything as well, which is pretty advanced. I mean, my first thought, I was starting to think, is this the Telosians? This is the Telosians, isn't it?
I'll get into that later, a little bit later. Well, eventually. But what are Parisi squares? Do you guys know?
It was a game. It's been mentioned before.
I'd heard of it, but I don't remember what it. Have we seen it like physically up to this point?
Was he playing it with his dad? Was that the game Riker played with his dad?
It's mentioned, I know.
So it's not the boxing or anything, is it? Is it more like High Lie? Maybe that's what would maybe envision.
it made me think Parcheesi, but just 'cause it's Parisi.
Yeah, it was first mentioned in the Next Gen episode 11001001.
Like Tron
Oh, okay.
discs,
Like
maybe.
that's what he was playing with his father, though.
Okay.
I do see some Voyager episodes referencing it as well, so maybe we'll see it in Voyager. Yeah, it's one of those games like 3-dimensional chess. I'm like, that's a Star Trek game. I don't really need to know any more than that.
Mm-hmm.
Ambassador Tomalak almost had the sound of Admiral.
Yes.
Admiral? Ambassador? Well, real quick, fashion note. What do we think of the boy's outfit this week?
The ending with the alien, or
just the boy? Just as I guess both outfits. Yeah, we'll hit both outfits.
I can't picture it. Let me.
So the alien felt very TOS design.
Yeah, it was TOS and even maybe Lost in Space. And I guess I'm being derogatory now, but because I thought the ending was quick, but it was touching, and then it got real cheesy for me when they I get it. It's a 12-second clip in a to create an entire alien for that quick thing. But if it's your whole episode, if your whole episode's building to that, it didn't ruin the episode for me, but it ended with a thud rather than an exclamation point that it started to end with for me.
Yeah, see, it felt like the aliens from Cat Spa or something.
Yeah. That's a perfect analogy.
I had a hard time picking an alternate episode here because it could have been Cat Spa, it could have been The Cage, it could have been Charlie X. Ultimately I went with Tommy Westphal wakes up in his hospital bed and sees the Enterprise use a snow globe.
I went with the menagerie that Riker decides, you know what? I'm going to spend my life with Minuet.
Yeah.
I'd rather, let's just do this. And you know what? I'm ready to put away everything else, this other life. I can live in this world. I can live in this snow globe.
I mean, that's a valid alternate to study.
Yeah.
With him with Minuet as a permanent thing, being the captain of the Enterprise.
Well, and again, it goes back to last week and to last week watching 2, 3, and 4 with my in-laws. Just the whole married to the ship thing, which it's just because Worf is essentially married to a ship and he ships the kid off, and Kirk obviously is still married to a ship, which I think is another reason they blow up the Enterprise in Star Trek 3. They don't need to kill his son. They blow up his actual most prized possession. But I don't go back a week. But yes.
I'll just say in Star Trek 6, he's still grieving his son. He's not still grieving the Enterprise.
This is true. But he's got another. He just replaced it with another one.
They gave him a new Enterprise.
He never had another son, right?
That's true.
As far as we know, on camera.
Anyway.
Well, yeah, that's right. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, I think because I feel like Riker's, and we get into that in Anxiety, obviously, and it's more about his connection to Troy too. But I think he's another one who's like, man, maybe, and it comes through more in Anxiety for me. But maybe I put that on here too. But just the idea of as Shatner, as Kirk says in Wrath of Khan, what could have been, my life that could have been, which goes all the way back to Naked Time when he's already getting into, maybe that wouldn't be so bad. But yeah.
What other notes you got?
I just have. And this is before the second turn or whatever. Riker's like, I want some answers. I want to know what's going on here. Blah blah blah. And excuse me. Troy goes, I sense anger in you. I was like, really, really. This is. So to me, that's very insulting. And maybe that's just what the alien thinks of what Troy does rather than what Riker thinks. But
right.
I was just like, does he really think that's what she does? But it's almost like Sigourney Weaver in Galaxy Quest, like just repeating what's actually going on.
Right.
Captain Obvious. Actually, that's my last note. Yeah.
No, since you bring that up, I think that's another demonstration of how that would work if like the computer lag and trying to pull from surface thoughts. I can see why we make certain kinds of mistakes or skip other things when he has the opportunity.
The obvious, yeah.
And so it's just I think this says more about what a casual observer would think about what Troy does than what Riker thinks, like really thinks or understands. Well, my only other note, I guess, is one of the tip-offs for me was when Ethan seemed too competent. But Ethan being like the name that the boy gave after the first illusion had been broken,
Sure.
where they thought this was the captive, and he's like walking him through like oh, here's what I did to escape. Here, let's go to this shuttle. Let's do all these other things. Let's get around the guards and just that started seeming even more suspicious.
How annoying was Wesley? Scale of 1 to 10.
I give him a 1 again this week.
He
Was he
wasn't
in
the
it?
episode.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was gonna.
So he's a no score. I think part of maybe why he wasn't in the episode is because they would have had to age him up. And how do you do that with Will Wheaton at this point?
Yeah.
He hasn't been in the show much lately. It feels like in season 4, he's had very little to do.
Mm.
We got like a good bit in family and something else in one other episode. But
The warp bubble.
Oh,
the warp bubble.
the
the
travel
bubble, we
thing.
got some stuff. Yeah, remember me. But yeah, he hasn't had much to do this season. Who was your annoyance?
This might be a reach because it doesn't actually have an appearance in the episode, I don't think. The holodeck is just the fact that I thought it was a holodeck. I was annoyed with it.
Okay, fair enough.
God, that's a good one. God, I don't have one.
I'm going to go with the future details because, like I said, I was having a hard time paying attention because I was too caught up in the minutia. They were distracting.
Yeah.
Well, let's make it fake Troy.
Fake Troy, okay.
Yeah.
I sense that you didn't care for her.
I mean, I wish I could choose Fake Crusher as my crush since she's not technically an episode, the character that we know and love, but I think that's cheating, so I'm going to go with Nurse Agawa.
She can be your fake crush.
Is your annoying or your crush?
Noah's crush.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I had her on my. I considered her. I will once again stick with Ashara, but I was excited that we finally got some dialogue from her and she was more engaged because I feel like I've seen her in the background before.
To be fair, I like Kalar better, but I do like Agawa, and I couldn't bring myself to ignore her when she actually had her first speaking time. As much as if it was a true decision between the two, I'd probably just stay with Kalar for the rest of the season.
Yeah. And, Kalar could still end up being our number 1 for the season.
She absolutely could. She can't be yours. She wasn't one of your choices.
Yeah. Until we get a Seinfeld guest star.
Yours will probably be a shower. I'm going to call it now.
It's looking pretty strong right now.
But yeah, I'm going to go Agawa, toss her in here, make sure she gets some time on the list.
And I will double check that Beth Toussaint was not in a Seinfeld episode. You know what? I'm going to go edit her into one just so I can keep that going.
Just make a fake meme.
Yeah, exactly.
Keith, crush.
I must have been too busy looking at the pencils in Beverly's hair or something. Or the barrette rods or something. I didn't notice any. So yeah.
Pencils in Beverly's hair, that's your crush?
No, just not changing.
You gonna stay with Kalar?
Fair enough.
I mean, I wouldn't blame you if you went with the pencils in Beverly's hair. I thought her hair was great.
Yeah.
Ranking the episode, I'm torn here because at the end of the day, I actually really enjoyed a lot of this episode, but I also have a lot of problems with the overall cohesiveness of it.
Oh, I had one more note before we get into this. Future imperfect tense. I did actually research.
Nice.
It is used to express the idea that an action event is predicted, planned, promised, expected, or obliged to have been being continued at some certain time in the future, or while another action event happens later in the future. So the one example that I found and remember is we will be leaving India next year.
Okay.
Oh,
Riker will be the captain of the Enterprise someday.
Yeah,
interesting.
Let me give you another one.
Oh, that's a really good title.
Yeah.
Much better than last week.
Yeah.
Union kind of sucked as a title. I mean, we were reunited with characters, but I don't know. It didn't feel like it fit. No. Keith and I talked about it off air, but okay. So let's start. I don't know. Middle, bottom, middle. Remember Me. Let's start with Remember Me, the Crusher episode that was also a false reality. Better or worse?
I like this one better.
I'll give you that.
Yeah.
Although this does, Remember Me is above Legacy, so you're putting it above Ashara.
I know. This is one of those where it's like, well, I like that one better, but I would put that. But yeah. So I have to.
So your head's about to explode any second.
I have to accept the council's ruling on that, and so I will. Paradoxically, I like.
Yes. Okay. What have you?
I'm voting for above Remember Me as well, Keith.
I can't remember either Remember Me or Legacy. Ironically, both titles Just the memory.
Remember Me was Crusher in the warp bubble.
Oh, yes. Okay, right. And Legacy was
Tasha Yar's sister.
Wow.
With the rape gangs.
Interesting. We put that Legacy under Remember Me.
Yeah, it suddenly seems wrong.
That is true, huh?
We're not going to find it out again, but it suddenly seems wrong to me as well.
How did that happen?
Well, we can revisit it when we get to the end of the season.
Yeah,
I guess we have to go back and listen.
Like the Defector, I thought ended up too high last season. Oh well. Okay.
No, yeah. As bubble episodes go, I think this one was better. The conceit was better.
So above Remember Me was Brothers.
Nope.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it above that either.
I already had it entered on the spreadsheet. So I was like, "There's no way we're going above Brothers." I think Brothers is a dividing line right now of the great episodes versus the good episodes.
I think it could have won if it were real or something. It's just this was when you, as I said before, when you have these future episodes, it was either going to be they're locking in something that I think that they can't live up to this early in the series, or it's just going to be a cheap trick that's going to be blown away at some point, and it's going to be the strength of the trick itself that's going to determine everything. So
I was going to say Trek does it too often because we see it in other Trek episodes as well, but Universe Journey already did it too. So, well, if you were missing Wesley, next week is called Final Mission. Before leaving for Starfleet Academy, Wesley Crusher accompanies Captain Picard on a dangerous mission. Will it be his final mission?
Well, yes, that's what the title says. So
next week we will be discussing Final Mission. Future Imperfect tense. Boom.
No, but you know that
it makes sense.
I guess we're planning to do it, but
yeah,
it makes sense if this is going to be Wesley's last episode that it's a Picard and Wesley episode. But we'll find out for sure next week. Until then, live long,
Ambassador, and prosper.
Imperfectly. No, there's something.
And then wake up and go back to real reality.
I'd rather hang out with
Minuet.
Minuet, yeah.
How come she wasn't your new crush?
Oh, you're right. She would have been good too. But you know what? I like Ashara better than her too.
Okay, we'll see you next week.
Bye.
I had something. Gone. I can't get it.
3, 2, 1.
It's All Been Done presents
Who's Got the Time?